before Aaron gets into kind of like demoing the app, I just want to give you guys like a little bit of background about why we did this. If you would have asked, I can't speak for you, if you would have asked me like 2 or 3 years ago, or told me rather that I was gonna both design and release a Bible app, I would have laughed you literally out of the room. It's not somewhere, I have a background like in like the Christian design industry, and like I was on staff at a church for years. But like in my recent career, like I've been in like the regular world. I don't know what secular world, I guess. And but I just like had this itch that started years ago, like probably in like the late 2000s, when kind of like the App Store hit and Bible apps started getting released. I got really excited about it. I remember sitting in church. I lived in New York at the time. I remember sitting in church with my iPad right after the iPad had come out, with the ESV Bible sitting open like on my lap, like so excited the fact that I could like read my Bible on an iPad in church. That's the coolest thing. And anyways, like, so that was like my experience with like Bible apps. And fast forward a couple years, and a couple years later, we ended up moving out here, and we're visiting churches trying to find a church home, and I remember like, oh yeah, as we're going between these churches, it'd be great to like use a Bible app. And going to the App Store, I started downloading. I literally downloaded every single one I could find, and like every single one that was in there was it was basically like a different version of the same app. Not even like speaking about like the quality of the design and the user experience. Like they all had the same features. They were all just like very like focused on like this idea of like, oh, connect with your friends in the Bible, and really bad navigation, made it really difficult. A lot of like noise in between like you and what you're using the app for, which is like to read God's word. And so I just had this idea one day. I was like, I wonder what it'd be like to just like reimagine like the Bible for a mobile phone. And so did a bunch of design on it, a bunch of work on it. It ended up sitting on the shelf for a while because I was at Apple. And then I met Aaron and I went on a camping trip to Yosemite one weekend, because you can do that here and it's amazing. And yeah, we just you have a ton of time to talk when you're camping together and hiking together. And he I had shown him designs early on, but he pushed me on it. He's like, what's going on with that? And I was like, I don't know, I can't do anything with it. I'm still at Apple. And he's like, well, let's just like build the thing and just like figure it out, And so right after we got back, we went and met at a Chick-fil-A one night and started working on it, because that's the best level of inspiration. When we did our incorporation, because you have to do that too. It's just weird when you release an app, a real business. We like signed our paperwork at Chick-fil-A.
We had a handful of other just random meetings at Chick-fil-A.
So anyways, yeah, like the whole approach to this thing was just, I'll cut this short, was just to like I mentioned a second ago, like what does it look like to get rid of all of the extra stuff that you maybe don't need.
You don't need.
If you're using like the Bible as utility to like look up scripture in churches. So that was one element of it, and the other element of it was I'd been at Apple for a long time. Aaron had been at AOL, and Aaron had been at Hightail, and it's like we have all of these ideas about like what makes great apps. And like so much of the time, like within the Christian community, whether it's true or not, like the reality is sometimes like the church doesn't put its best foot forward when it comes to design and when it comes to art. And so what would it look like to take like all these ideas we have and like not only like make one of the best Bible apps available, like what if we made like the best reading app available? And like that was our benchmark. It was like, we want to make the best reading app no matter what content's in it. And so we ended up with New Bible. We wanted the thing to be flat and really fast and really easy to access. And really like there's this old adage, like even so easy my mom could use it. And the first time I ever handed it to her, she like just picked it up and knew exactly how to use it. And I knew like no matter like whoever I put it in front of after that point, like the fact that my mom could pick it up, and she's like pretty tech illiterate. It took me 3 hours to get my dad's phone set up with her one time. And he's had an iPhone. Anyways, I knew that like we had done our job. And so, yeah, this is New Bible.
Here we go. So I think this right here is the most magical piece that we came up with.
The spine?
The spine. It's my favorite part. You've got your book stuff over here. You've got your list of books of the Bible. Reading view comes in on top. and then this is your control. And that was sort of a,
It's your totem.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's, yeah. Inception reference?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
You always know where you are when you see
Yeah.
the spine.
So we wanted it to be, I mean, the Bible's, we all know, it's not, it is, you can read it linearly, but that's not how most of us interact with it. So we very much wanted to make it quick and easy, and every other app we came, it was like
Don't put anything in front of you.
this
Just
forced entry of like, you have to pick a book first, and then you get another grid of numbers, and you have to pick a chapter, and then you get a grid of numbers and scroll through and pick a verse. So we wanted it very easy, so we made a couple of ways to just get in and get out. So just a traditional list in order, swipe over. You can go to a specific chapter, and then you just start reading.
We wanted to give like multiple ways that you could easily get into scripture, whether it's like that quick jump navigation. We came up with this and we were like, everybody's going to use this. You can like double tap anywhere while you're reading and access search, like global search. Like the engineers that we work with like built tremendously like robust search within it. Like, I was always blown
They ended
away
up
with
building like a special like archiving system that's built into the app, so like search and everything is just lightning fast. I mean, they did stuff that was very, very impressive. And then also just sort of scrub over. I'm in John, or better example, I'm in Psalms. I'm in Psalm 1. Boom. I don't have to like jump back out to a high level navigation, and everything's very, very touch centric.
Yeah.
I'm here, I'm back. You can go wherever you want to go. You can highlight.
So another part of Aaron and mine's background is we actually, both of us started off as print designers, working in publishing. We actually met one another. We were both designers at this magazine called Relevant in Orlando. I was an art director, you were an art director. And then even after Relevant, I spent a lot of time as an art director at this magazine in New York. Aaron has an extensive print design background, and we have this like shared. I think one of the reasons we gravitated towards one another is like we have this like shared like respect and love of typography. And so like when we decided to do this, we were like, we could go like the easy way. We could just like find a bunch of free fonts. Maybe there's a bunch of like fonts and typefaces installed on the iPhone that would look okay, but
Then
like,
you look just like everybody else.
Yeah,
And it doesn't.
yeah.
One thing we really wanted was like a crafted experience. We wanted you to look at it, and it's something we're going to talk about as we get into like our actual talk. Like we wanted to show care and show that things were purposefully done and not just done because it was here on the phone.
Yeah. So we did a ton of research on like what are some of the like the best, like reading typefaces like out there. We wanted to like pay respect to like a lot of the great type houses. And so yeah, we ended up sourcing out and licensing like I think four of our favorite typefaces that you can read with.
Breve, which is like a really great.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Thanks. You want me to step back?
Go over here. My favorite typeface of all time is Sentinel. So we got Sentinel in there.
Nice little slab serif, super readable. Here, let me make these a little bigger. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you can adjust the sizes as well.
Line
graphic, which I had never heard of graphic. When the first time Aaron showed it to me, I saw the M, the uppercase M in graphic, literally made me weak in the knees. I know that's a weird thing to say about typography, but I saw it and I was like, dude, what am I looking at right now? This is insane. Like he texted me a picture over iMessage and I lost it.
Yeah.
Weird things that designers get into that make us happy.
Super design nerd stuff.
Yeah.
So that's New Bible. And you can see.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Where's the connect to Facebook, Kory?
If you go into settings, so another thing, like like traditionally, this is just a little thing. When it comes like Bible covers, like Bible and Christian book design is usually like maybe it's not great. And so like one thing we wanted to do was like with the translations that we have in the app, like what if we actually, because we're just licensing these things, like we wanted these things to feel like tactile. It's like if you're spending like a few bucks or $9 on something, we want you to feel like, you know, you get your money's worth out of like a digital artifact. And so we designed, you know, custom covers for all of the different translations that we have. Most of them we were trying to use, or several of them we were trying to use like the faces that are actually in the app. But I'm really proud of a lot of these. Everybody on this one kept asking us when we were beta testing, like, why, we think something's wrong.
You
it's
uploaded
like
a bad
blurry
image, it's all blurry.
Like, no, it's design, man, it's design. Where's the iPad?
It's in your bag.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's New Bible.
And we just actually, we just released a few weeks ago, I guess, a month ago, on the iPad as well. It was interesting because the iPad presented.
Did you want to?
iPad design in general presents a lot of design challenges for like that size screen. Hold on. BCC Coffee House. Do you want to walk through it?
No, go for it.
And so, what's happening? Sorry, guys. I'm on VCC Coffee. Oh, mirror. Oh, there we go.
0643.
Like holding a huge computer. So yeah, designing for the iPad, like I don't know if there's any designers in the room, is hugely challenging. Like if you're dealing with like large media and photographs and stuff like that, even that's really hard. When you try to do something like we are doing with like a mainly text-based interface that really only has one visual artifact as an anchor, which is like the spine on the left side, it just presents a ton of different challenges. To the power of the iPad Pro, which I'm holding right now, it's even harder.
Yeah.
And so it's funny, like as a benchmark for ourselves when we designed this thing, we wanted it, when people open it up for the first time, to just be like, oh, it's just iPad, you know, it's just New Bible on the iPad. Like that's actually like a huge compliment. You know, making something like work for the iPad, again, if you've ever done anything, is actually like really, really difficult. And so all of our work was really into just like tweaking and like, you know, making sure that the thing like just felt exactly like the iPhone, just on a bigger screen. And I think I'm really, really proud of it. You know, like everything is, we basically designed in, you know, custom widths for all the different iPad screen sizes for the reading view, so that it felt natural on every screen.
Still very readable. We're not.
Yeah, there's really nothing to do. It's
forcing
exactly,
full screen stuff.
Yeah, it's the iPad on New Bible. Oh, so that's this themes. That's actually your timeline. So anytime you like highlight a verse, it drops into your highlights timeline. When we designed the timeline, we actually had a much more ambitious
It is much bigger than what we have now, unfortunately.
Idea for it. Just this idea that like, what if you built something that was like literally a diary for your interactions with the Bible, you know, like, you know, things like date and time and location, in the same way that like if I hear a song, this is gonna be a really funny reference. If I hear this one particular Dave Matthews song, my wife is groaning. I'm literally back in 1996 in Birmingham, Alabama. I'm like driving in my 92 Honda Prelude with my windows down and my sunroof open.
Right. What would you say?
And so like, Dave Matthews, it's embarrassing. So that same idea, that same insight that like, you know, these little bits of signal, you know, like maybe with a song it's like audio signal, with smells, you know, can these little bits of signal actually like help give you a better understanding of like maybe when you highlighted a verse or like took a note. And even beyond that, there's some additional like interesting insight stuff that we're trying to still explore. But like as it stands right now, it's basically just like anytime you highlight something, it's just like a place to go back and recall it and read it. So.
And your bookmark lives there as well.
Oh yeah, and if you bookmark something, it lives there as well. Yeah, and that's, again, really
all right.
New Bible for iPad. So
let's get in.
You guys
cool.
have any questions?
I do.
Sure.
Yeah.
How did you happen to choose the versions you chose for translation?
It's the ones that we could get. So It's been a tricky. I think if there's been anything in this project that's like been difficult, the most difficult part of it has been working with Bible publishers to acquire the licensing rights. I don't think either of us had any idea what we were getting ourselves into. I
thought I had an idea, and then it happened, and I just wet myself.
Yeah, and so so the ones that we got, like we were like really lucky to have a couple of different translations that were available for free. We did a deal with like Holman Christian Standard Bible, which is popular with like Baptists, to offer theirs for free as well. Normally they would charge, but like, since we give it position 1 in the app, they allow us to like have it in there for free. The other ones, it's just like we just had to like sign our lives away essentially. So
there's a lot of technical constraints as well in getting each of these in.
Yeah, so there's the business side of it, which is like the licensing of it, which we usually pay anywhere between 40 and 50% per translation out to the publishers out of the gate, in addition to the 30% we pay Apple. Sorry to get into like the business side of it. But then there's just like, the technical constraints. Like there's no standardized like format in which you get these things. So each and every translation we have to individually parse and like go through and like fix code and fix bugs. And it's been like
the bane of my existence.
The bane of his, not mine. I don't deal with that. But it's been and
just makes my head split when I look at some of this.
Our
stuff.
developer Zach, I feel like it's just like throwing his hands up a lot of the times. So
it's crazy. We can go into all of the
grab us afterwards.
The moanings of translation XML.
Take it offline.
I was actually going to ask, if we go into the business a little bit, I'm really curious. I don't know if you guys charge for the download. I was curious how you make money. I was just really curious about how long it took you guys to develop it.
Yeah.
So I understand the design kind of might have taken a while.
Totally.
How long did it take? How much did it cost if it comes?
Yeah, I mean, we'll be really honest with you guys. We've never talked about this stuff anywhere, like on Twitter, with people outside of the two of us. Development took, how long did it take us? Like 6 months?
6 months.
About
just
6
shy
months.
Of 6 months.
How many developers?
We actually we hired the shop out of there in Canada and Istanbul, Turkey. Yeah. It was like 3 guys.
There was a head developer, a main developer that we had.
Sorry, we haven't talked about this in public before.
And then they had a QA and a project manager. QA did some development, but mostly just like bulk testing. And then project manager was just project.
And it was funny, like we thought, because we paid for the thing completely out of pocket, we bootstrapped it entirely. Because like we knew we could probably like raise some level of like funding for it, but like we knew that where we wanted to take it was like so counter to like what was out there that we were worried that if we took on money, like somebody was gonna like want to influence like our vision for it. And so we kind of made the hard decision. I think my wife, she like let me take our life savings, and Aaron and I just like put all of our money into it. And it was, how much was it?
64.9.
Yeah, so like $65,000. When you say, how do you guys make money?
Slowly.
We could actually probably.
We could just close this if you guys just want to talk about that.
And do the whole talk on this stuff because it's fascinating. Like we've gone back and forth on like, how do we like talk about this? Like, what is the form that we talk about this? Because it's stuff that's like really interesting that I think people should know. I think a lot of people think that like the App Store is like this golden goose, and like you release an app and you make all this money. And like right when we came out, we were like really fortunate to get this. This article in Fast Company, like on the front page of Fast Company, talking about like us and like what we were doing. So we had that, and we had a bunch of other like press on our launch day, and I think everybody thought we had like 1 million downloads that day. We had just over 3,000 downloads. We were a paid app when we came out. We were $1.99 at the time. We had done a lot of thinking and a lot of research on like what kind of like the sweet spot was. But yeah, we got like 3,000 downloads. I think a lot of people, I think Aaron was getting text messages like, "Oh man, are you buying an island yet?" It's like, you guys have no idea. I'm like,
maybe a Lego island.
Yeah,
but like.
I originally was. I originally was gonna like quit my job and do this full time, but my wife was like, we need insurance and you need a steady paycheck, and I'm
kind of
so
glad you didn't
that
make
you
that
didn't.
decision.
But all that to say, like I think that like the whole experience of doing this is not, in addition to like being a learning experience, it's like opened up so many doors for us to like meet people we never would have met and like have conversations about like things that really matter. Like, like things that like really matter within the church, and I think it's opened up a dialogue within our community with a lot of people that I think has gone unspoken about, just about like the excellence in doing stuff like this and the realities of just like what it means to like make these things, you know, and yeah, I think in that way, like it's been hugely successful while it hasn't been necessarily like monetarily successful.
Right.
I think like just to get back to the business stuff, we came out at $1.99. We weren't getting many downloads, and we realized we weren't showing up in search because like the App Store search algorithm like heavily favorites like incumbents, so like total number of downloads. And I don't know if you guys have everybody I'm sure has it. The YouVersion app has had hundreds of millions of downloads, and so like it's so heavily like favors like apps like YouVersion and Logos. Like we just weren't going to show up in search, and we were like, we have no way of like advertising. We spent all our money developing this thing. We have to show up in search. Like word of mouth, we don't have enough scale for word of mouth to work, and so we went free as kind of a knee-jerk reaction. And so our numbers definitely went up, but our in-app purchases like plummeted. And so we just made the decision. We had like a lot of life stuff happen towards the end of last year. I changed jobs.
I got married.
Aaron got married.
Had a baby.
Had a kid. But as we started working again on the iPad app, we just like made the decision. We're like, we're just going to go back paid, and it's going to kill our download numbers.
And it did.
And it did. I think we had 3 yesterday.
Yeah.
God, I can't believe this is going to get out. I hope we don't share this.
Maybe we should stop talking.
Downloads tonight.
But yeah, I mean, again, like, I'm really, really proud of the project, you know, but like, it's interesting, like, that is the reality of the App Store, and it's funny, like, I've had some conversations with different developers and different people that like just like know download numbers. Like, I think even though we made like zero money, like, we're in like the top 1% of apps.
Yeah, like most apps get sub 1,000 downloads.
Yes, total. And like are dead within X amount of months.
Yeah.
You know, like development stops on them. It's just the App Store, unfortunately, is like this minefield of just like abandoned apps because it's a hard business, and it's a hard business and nobody's talking about the business side of it because Apple gets on stage at WWDC every year, like they're going to next month, and be like, we had 40 kajillion downloads and whatever.
But all of those are in this tiny little percentage.
Yeah, they parade people on stage and they're like, look at all the successes, but like nobody talks about the hard parts of it. We've actually considered doing like a Kickstarter project, a photo book / like podcast / video series that just like goes around and like talks to people who aren't succeeding in the App Store and talking about the realities of it and like how that's affected their lives, because it has a really, even on an emotional level, like I'm getting really honest here, guys, I'm sorry. It's been a hard year, you know, it's since we released. Like there have been mornings I wake up, I don't want to get out of bed because it's like, as a designer, like the things that you make are like a reflection of you, you know? And like when people aren't responding to the thing that you made in the way that you thought they would, like it has an effect on you. And so, yeah, but again, it's been great. It's been hard, but sorry we got so real, you guys.
It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
Are you Robin Williamsing me? Yeah.
Segue.
So what's now?
Sorry.
What's next? What's now?
Yeah.
Sure. I'm gonna segue after that. I'm gonna come over here so we can.
Yeah. Just jump in.
So yeah, we're gonna do a. How long do we have actually?
Just go.
Okay.
Because we just speed.
We might not get to all of it. I want to be respectful of your guys' time. But yeah, we want to do a little chat just about design and Christianity. I don't think we have like a really structured talk, but you know, over the past several years, I've, like I mentioned before, like both Aaron and I, we have pretty similar backgrounds. We both worked in the Christian design industry at relatively like interesting places. I was on staff at a church for several years. We both worked at Relevant. Oh, you were on staff at a church?
Yeah. Southern California and Orlando. I was at Northland for a while.
And then we both, oh, were you really? Who are you?
Ignore us. We're just going to have a conversation.
Yeah, and then like, both of us like transitioned for various reasons like into like the more mainstream like design industry. And there's like a handful of things that we've noticed, and we just kind of like wanted to walk through a few of those things and just talk about them. So we can skip this. We can skip this.
That's Kory.
That's Aaron. Now you know who we are. So the first thing we want to talk about is the fact that there's no such thing as Christian design, and there's no such thing as a Christian designer. That might be somewhat controversial thing to say.
You get an argument over it.
Yeah, but I think the reality is like no matter, it's interesting. Like at the end of the day, like design is design, and like a design problem that you experience in the church, the way you solve those problems is the same way you solve problems like working on apps at Facebook or like working on apps at Yahoo or like services at Yahoo. This idea that like, oh, you have to have a special skill set to be a designer in the church, or you have to have a special skill set to, be a designer like for a tech company or, working in a movie studio doing graphic design. Like I think that's a bit of a falsity. So yeah, that's the first thing. Second thing is, there's this idea that like, oh, like bad design is like pretty localized, like the Christian world, or like all Christian design is bad. Bad design is everywhere. Like you walk out on the street, you go to Target, you go to the grocery store, you're going to be surrounded by bad design. If you look at something like a boarding pass for an airline, the boarding pass is like an interesting exercise in bad design. Because if you look at them, like there's no visual hierarchy. You don't know where to look. They don't like highlight any of the stuff that's like really valuable. Like, hey, what time do you board? Hey, what gate are you at? Hey, oh, they got your seat right. But like all the things that you should be able to like know just by glancing at this thing, you can't. You have to.
It's
like
almost
dive
purposefully
into
designed to not find that
it's like we're being
information.
punked.
Yeah.
It's like I get my boarding pass.
Try and
I
find your
look for-
flight, sucker.
Look for Ashton. Here's another example of a Delta boarding pass. Like what? Like here's your departure gate. It's funny. I just grabbed this like off of Google Images, and it's like they had highlighted the fact that like these are the things I need to know, but I can't see those things because they're tiny.
Yeah. TSA does that because that is so bad. That,
Yeah.
I know people are going to get lost, so we're fixing bad design by doing this.
Yeah. So, one example of bad design. I don't know if you guys remember Miss Universe last year with Steve Harvey. He got so much flack for like misstating like who the winner was. But I don't know if you guys like actually also saw like the results card that he had been given to like talk about who had won Miss Universe. Like talk about like bad design, like affecting like pop culture and affecting like the popular opinion of somebody. Like I felt so bad for the guy because at first I was like, oh, what a jerk. And I was like, oh, I would have screwed that up too, So yeah, in the real world, there's bad design everywhere. There's also bad design in the Christian world.
The percentage maybe is a
little bit higher. This thing takes forever to like skip forward. I definitely skipped it.
Yeah. It's like the airplay's off.
Is AirPlay off?
Or
So I guess we'll just look at one thing, and it's the Christian t-shirt. I don't know if anybody's ever, yeah.
my first job was at a Christian bookstore, Joshua's, and like we had a whole wall of just these.
Did you really?
Yeah, and a 15-year-old kid walking in, I was just like, what are we doing?
The very first thing I ever designed was a shirt for a mission trip for my youth group, and I had taken the North Face logo and I had like rejiggered it, and it said "See his face" or something like that. I wish I still had. I wish I still had like the shirt.
So do I.
See, you make fun of me in other ways, so you don't even.
No, I had crest logo, but it said Christ.
Anyways, the third thing, and I kind of alluded to this before, but design is design is design. I think like that's one thing when I look back at like my time in like the Christian industry and my time now like as a mainstream designer, whatever you want to call, I don't even know what to call that. Like the reality is like no matter what kind of company you work at or what kind of project you're working on, if you're designing a website for a church or if you're working on a big ad campaign for Nike or if you're designing apps for Yahoo or Apple, the same fundamental principles that inform like how you solve a project and how you get to the right design on something still apply across the board. Yeah. Aaron? What?
I feel like we missed.
Where
lost
did the
a slide.
slides go? Hold on, I'm about to. What was number 4?
There was only 3.
Sorry,
just-
guys.
Designing in flight.
Okay, cool. Do you remember what the lead-in for that was?
No.
Do you not?
That's
okay. Just go through it.
Figure it out. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're just like talking about like some of those principles.
Yeah. So there are.
Like what those principles are.
Yeah. I had 3 points. Let's see if it. Winging it. So there's some stuff that design does and shows when it's done correctly outside of just the quality of. You took a picture of it?
What? Did you take
Christians used to be at the forefront. There we go. Okay. All right. So number 4, Christians used to be at the forefront of art and design. All of the art that exists now that is just amazing was all done for a church. Like name a famous artist and they were painting for the church, subsidized by the church.
Michelangelo.
Done for the church.
Da Vinci.
For the church. Well, some of it. Some of it was for the church. All of this art that exists that people pay thousands of dollars to go visit, like that's all in a church or in a museum, and it used to be just hanging, behind a dude giving a sermon. Like what happened? Like, why did we give that up? Why did we all decide that art was something that
Didn't even invest in it.
just didn't need to be invested in? And art, I think, has some things, and design, to transition into this, when you see good design, it's more than just the design itself, tells you something about the message that's trying to be sent. So it shows that there's an investment of time. I believe in this message or this thing so much that I'm going to sit down and focus just on this and forget about everything else and craft this in a way. Like there's commitment. Like I'm committing to making sure this is the best thing ever to show to you guys. It shows like a level of craft. And craft shows that you care about something. Like you want this thing to be so great that someone else looks at it and goes, "Oh, I want that." And if we don't bring all of these things like skill that we work on, if this happens, the message that we send is that Christianity is not worthy of these same investments. Yeah, still same slide.
Airplay, sorry.
Airplay. So getting into I think we're also missing the 3 points. Anywho, whatever. We're funny, we're making up for it. Well, he's.
Are we?
No, we're not. No, we're not.
Delusional.
So the 3 things that I think sort of led to, I'm going to see if I can pull up the old PDF. Just want to go to Dropbox.
Sorry.
This isn't unprofessional at all. I'm just going to play on my phone while you guys stare at me.
No pressure.
None at all.
What's that Warriors count?
Yeah, how about that Warriors game?
Is that what you're looking at?
103.94.
We've lost attention to the Warriors. That's in New Bible?
Talks, yeah.
Yeah.
Who's
There
up?
it is.
Warriors up.
Okay, there we go. We can all
Relax.
be fine.
Oh, we got it here.
Yeah,
Sorry. Sorry, technical difficulties.
Got lost here as well. This should have been later. So
I don't know how I got it.
our slides got mixed up. It's probably something I did. Andrew Fletcher said this. It has been changed. He had some like old flowery English. Let me make the songs of a nation, and I care not who makes its laws. And basically, what he was saying was the most influential things are these artistic things that everyone just kind of does outside of like the laws that are governing and trying to make people live a certain way. So by influencing people through art and through design, like that's where the culture change can happen. So this is the number 4 slide. Christians used to be at the forefront of art. So what happened? And I think it comes down to 3 things. The desire to embrace a congregant's passions and help. Great thing. The lack of explanation of value by skilled designers. Not a great thing. The avoidance of objective judgment of art and design. And I think that is kind of high-level cultural. Everyone just says, oh, it's art, so you can't say it's good or bad. But not true. We've all seen bad art. If we're going to say that there's bad art, then we're saying that there is a rule set of which to judge art by, so there has to be good art out there. So the first one, desire to embrace passion. Time's the gift that we give to God. It's the one thing that we can't just get more of. So when we give it, it's this very precious thing that could never be used again for anything else. And design is that. It's an investment of time. It's doing it. So I get that people want to give this time, but just because you're passionate about something doesn't mean that you should be doing it. You got to step a little further. Some people are afraid to give an honest critique and say like, hey man, I'm glad that you really want to serve, but maybe this is not the place. That's a very hard thing to say to somebody who is actually wanting to help. But, you know, you're not going to be good. I'm not good at a lot of things. This is one of them. Give it. And the reason that that's not necessarily a good thing, if a bad message is stated in great art, it can be devastating.
Yeah.
Francis
I
Schaeffer
love
said
this.
that. Yeah. So he wrote a whole book of essays on like Christianity and art, and it's fantastic. But what if the inverse is also true? A great message stated in bad art can be devastating. So if this is true, then absolutely this is true. So why aren't we investing in great things to share this fantastic life-saving message? Lack of professional involvement. Mm-hmm. I don't know when this happened or sort of why it happened, but design just kind of ignored the church and the message, and it's an enhancement of the message. It's not the focus of the message. I'm getting lost.
You're lost?
Yeah.
Just go to the next slide. I mean, it's right there on the screen. Yeah. I think we get it. No, I can speak to that.
Sure.
Yeah, it's funny, and I think it actually ties into your first statement about time. I think that those two things are related. This idea that if somebody gives their time, then that's obviously they're giving to God. And a lot of times, I've been at this place. When I started off my career, I was in the same place. And I'm sure somebody gave me an opportunity to work on stuff that I shouldn't have been given. I was given the keys to the car when I should never have even been behind the wheel. And I think you learn through that process. But unfortunately, the result is because you have a lot of eager people within the community, is that you do get a lot of work that doesn't connect with the values of design, of good design. This idea that design is about communication. Design is about seeing something and understanding the message that thing is saying. And when you couple this idea that eagerness is all that is required without skill, you end up at a place like this where there are not maybe a lot of professionals. And we're in the Silicon Valley, and everybody here is probably a professional at what they do. Professional in design, and professionals in engineering. But when you get into other parts of the country, sometimes isn't true. Like the skill sets of the people in the congregation might not necessarily align like they do in like New York or San Francisco or Silicon Valley. And so you do end up like this weird disconnect. So.
Yeah, and then, so as designers, we have also not explained the value of why design should be included in this. Design helps you build and target emotions. We can help craft these things to create positive solutions to bring you along in this like very emotional message we're trying to send. And saying that the message should be central does not preclude good design. Like, I think we all agree that like God has the power to just like have someone walk into Target and go, Jesus. And like, that'll change somebody's life. Like, but that doesn't mean we can't actually try to make these things with this fantastic message as best as possible, like with the utmost craft and skill. And then there's the avoidance of objectivity, which I mean, I did art school stuff, so I saw this a lot. Like, you just say it was art and like no one was allowed to like say it was good or bad. Like, well, no, it's my expression of my angst and getting here with traffic.
I feel, design is not art. Well,
right.
It's tricky because like there is a very fine line.
It's very artistic.
Between like what design is. Design can be artistic, but like, I think when people think about like, when you just say like the word design, people think about like the way things look. But like design is like how things work. It's how they like function within the context of other things. Like there's a complexity to design when you get away from like visual design. That like I think causes like some wiggling in the force, you know? And people don't understand. And so they're reluctant to give like honest feedback because they think it's art.
Right. A book cover for any of these things here is not art. Like, it's meant to do a very specific thing. So that J.I. Packer book, Knowing God, like that's meant for me to be able to read that and see it from over here so that it triggers something in my head. Oh, I want to know God. So I'm drawn to it. Like, book covers are, I hate the can't judge a book by its cover. You absolutely can. And I'm talking about like actual books. Like, I'm going to know if like some of these things, what they're about, whether I should approach it or not. Because design does have like an objective value to it. Truth and goodness, like, are objective, these things that we're preaching about. So objectivity does exist, and if we're going to say that some of this stuff is good and some of it's bad, we're acknowledging that there's like a rule set that we can play in, and that's absolutely what design is. Art tends to not have a lot of those rules. Design absolutely is coming up with a solution inside of a box. Like, there are rules that you have to stay in, and there are some things that are wrong, and there are some things that are absolutely right. So how do we do better?
Yeah, like I was worried, or we were worried rather, you know, we didn't want to like come in and like talk about like, oh, like we've done a bad design, you know, we've done a bad job, you know, as Christians who are designers, we've done a bad job at like communicating God's message through our craft, you know, so we wanted to ask ourselves like, how do we do better? I have no idea how we do better. But I think there are a handful of like little fundamentals that we can look at like as designers and as people who like make things that we can apply to like our craft and apply to our jobs and our day to day that I think, while not like a solution, you know, because I think that would take conversations like way longer than like a 30-minute chat, like can at least instill some interesting like ideas in our heads that can help us do a better job as designers no matter where we are. You know, like I said, like whether or not we work for a church or whether we're just like doing stuff on the side for free and just like, you know, like we're making t-shirts, trying to sell t-shirts, or whether we're like working at a tug company or wherever we are. I think one thing we need to understand is like design is a discipline. You know, just like something we all know a little bit about, like our faith like is a discipline. Like we have to work at it and we have to like, you know, continually hone it and continually talk to God so that our faith can, become stronger. You know, I look at like my life as a designer a lot like I look at like my life as a Christian. You know, like there are days that I wake up and I'm like, I am a horrible designer. I'm a fraud. I should not be doing this. And there are days I wake up as a Christian and think the same thing. There are days I feel like a fraud as a Christian, as a fraud as somebody who walks out my faith. And I think that those things are pretty correlated. One thing you need to remember is, like Aaron had mentioned earlier, like invest your time. I think where you invest your time is a reflection of the things that you care about. And if you care about creating like great design, you're going to invest your time in like learning the things that you need to learn to do that. Investing your time in your gift that you've gotten from God is a reflection of you caring about like the gifts that God's given you. This one, understand the fundamentals. Like if you want to design an app, we actually get that question a lot. Like, oh, you guys design an app? I want to design an app. Where do I start? It's a complicated question, like a lot of designers, when they've never, done an app before, they start off like, oh, I'm just going to like look at what's available. They go to the app store, they jump on Dribbble. Dribbble is like a design community on the internet, with a lot of like amazing design on it. But that's where they start, and they're like, oh, I'm just going to like emulate like the work that other people have done. Like I felt like when we worked on New Bible, one direction we could have taken was like, hey, we're just going to like do what's like hip, do what's popular. But we understood that like to create something great, we needed to understand some fundamentals that went beyond emulation. Like we designed an app that was mainly about, type and like text. And so like we had to understand like the fundamentals of typography and composition and layout. Maybe your app, is much deeper than something like we made, like understanding like the fundamentals of like information architecture and like understanding like weird things that wouldn't even seem related to design, like things like behavioral psychology and like the way people like interact with things, like those things all, when you understand like the fundamentals of like all of those different things, they're going to help you like create something great. But just like investing your time in understanding those things is really important. I think like the single best thing I did for my craft, I guess, that's a weird thing to say, this like design, this thing that I can do, was to like look beyond the walls of the church, and to look at the greats. And it's like I wanted to be a graphic designer when I started out, and so I started in the church, and like for the first several years I was looking at like, oh, like who are great designers in the Christian industry, and there's some like really great designers in the Christian industry, but like what I wanted to like really focus in on like learning those fundamentals and learning like what makes great design. I started like, looking at like some of the greats. I was looking at like people like Michael Beirut and Paul Rand and Stefan Sagmeister. Don't go on his website, it's not safe for work. Saul Bass and Chip Kidd and Milton Glaser, like all of these like really great designers that have set the foundation for what great design is in the world. Not in our part of the world, like in the entire world. Like they've set, the boundaries for like what makes good design. I think the last thing, and this will end on this, but it's just to broaden your horizons. I think this is not a nice thing to say, but I think some of the most insufferable designers I've ever met, I think we can say that there are some insufferable designers, are ones that only talk about, like when you talk to them and you go to have coffee, like all they talk about is design. All they talk about is like their little corner of design, and it's like their world. But I think some of the most dynamic designers I've ever met, and like the most dynamic people I've ever met, like have interests that go well beyond their craft, and they're interested in things that have the same principles of design, things like architecture and industrial design and, music. Their interest in that actually helps inform how they design and how they like view products and, and like even interests beyond like the design world, things like politics and psychology and childcare. Like when you invest yourself into other areas of life, I think that you gain insight that you might not have expected into your own craft in design. Just like having a conversation with my dad sometimes about like the restaurant business, because he's been in it for like 40 years, like has brought for me, I think, profound insight that's like affected like the way I approach design and the way I approach myself as a professional. So, that's basically it. Thank you guys for having us. I know we went like really long. We're very unprofessional, but yeah.
I'm just gonna have a couple minutes for questions. questions, maybe about 2 or 3, maybe 4 questions. So, anybody have a question?
First of all, 15 seconds left.
15 seconds.
We can wait 15 seconds.
Warriors, 108.
Wait, what's the score?
115, 108.
Warriors are up by 10.
Warriors are
Okay.
by 10. 15 seconds left.
With 3
Game
timeouts.
6.
3
Which is
timeouts.
like at least 20 minutes.
So no
Yeah.
questions. All right, anybody got a question?
When you talk about objectivity,
Yes.
one of the major premises, at least I hold, of objectivity, it needs to be measured, otherwise it's opinion.
Yes.
What type of objects or what type of measurements do you propose for design?
Well, that's going to be different for every single project you're actually trying to work on.
Understood,
So,
but it must be some
Yeah.
universal, otherwise you can't say it's to be objective, everyone's unique.
right, but every project being unique also has a goal, right?
Right?
Because we're not just printing bulletins and like putting them out. So, are we helping people to?
How do you measure that?
I mean, it could be a hard number. Without an actual,
saying it's hard
if we want to be
to-
objective, then
Yeah.
give me an
No,
actual
totally.
example. So it could be like,
A/B testing, right?
yes. I mean, you can do, that's a very product-y design world thing. Like you A/B test stuff. Which one actually performs better? Do more people respond to this message or to this message? Do people keep these bulletins or do they throw them away? You can measure.
I read an article this week on Pitchfork that was talking about a band is actually A/B testing their music, which is what?
Sure. But I mean, when I was doing bulletin, simple, like actual example, bulletin design, I was figuring out how many people were asking questions or saying that they couldn't find a certain piece of information. So that's completely objective. Like, are more people getting information or are less people getting information? So what problem are you trying to solve? And that's very much a design thing. What are you trying to solve? What's your end game? And then measuring the actual things that need to improve to solve that problem. So it's a very vague answer, but that's kind of one of the nice things about design.
No, I like your answer. I guess my point was, it's one thing to say be objective, but it doesn't help to say be objective if you don't tell me how to measure that objectivity.
Fair.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
So I'll
that's
say that I think it's critique. I would prefer to hear what you just said as part of your presentation.
Yeah, no. So we're A/B testing talks like this, and this is the
You guys got the C
this is
talk
the bad
in the A/B
one.
test.
We did a different one that was really good in our
The alpha tester means
in
giving
Kory's living room. So, yeah, design-wise, to find the objectivity, find the problem you're trying to solve, figure out the measurements you need to get, and figure out if you're solving that problem.